Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. The kitchen was quiet except for the soft hiss of the pan and the gentle rhythm of evening rain tapping against the window. Warm light spilled across the counter, glinting off the knife as she chopped vegetables, lost in thought. Her favorite song played faintly from the Bluetooth speaker, low, slow, and soothing. Everything felt ordinary until he walked in. He didn't say a word at first. She felt him before she saw him, that subtle awareness when someone familiar enters the room. His steps were slow, deliberate. When she turned slightly to glance over her shoulder, their eyes met for just a second too long. Something shifted in that gaze, unspoken, magnetic, familiar yet new. He leaned against the counter, pretending to watch her cook, but his attention was fixed on the curve of her back, the loose strand of hair falling across her neck. She smiled to herself, pretending not to notice, stirring the pan as if the air hadn't grown heavier. But inside, her heartbeat had already quickened. "Smells good," he murmured, his voice deeper than usual. "Dinner's almost ready," she replied softly, though her hands trembled just a little. That's when it happened, that unguarded moment when his hand brushed her waist as he reached for the salt. Just a light touch, fleeting but electric. The contact lingered longer than it needed to, his fingers tracing a slow, absent-minded line across her side. She froze not from discomfort, but from the way the warmth spread through her body. The air between them thickened. The sound of the rain faded behind the pounding of her pulse. Her breath hitched as she set the spoon down. He was close now, so close that she could feel the heat radiating from him. When she finally turned, his hand was already there, firm on her waist, guiding her gently but with purpose. Their eyes met again, and the playful spark from moments ago deepened into something heavier, more intimate. He didn't need words. Neither did she. The kitchen, once filled with the scent of garlic and butter, now carried the unmistakable scent of tension, slow, simmering, and real. She whispered his name, half warning, half invitation. His lips curled into a knowing smile. The moment hung suspended between them, fragile and fiery, promising that whatever came next would change the quiet rhythm of that ordinary evening forever. The tension between them didn't fade, it deepened, weaving itself quietly into every word, every glance. She tried to distract herself, reaching for the spice jar on the shelf, pretending to focus on the recipe. But her hands betrayed her, trembling slightly as he came closer again, his presence impossible to ignore. He took the jar from her fingers, their hands brushing in that fleeting, charged way that sent warmth spiraling through her chest. "You're shaking," he said softly, a teasing smile tugging at his lips. "From the heat," she lied, looking back at the pan though her focus was long gone. He chuckled under his breath, that low, familiar sound that had always made her feel safe and seen. But tonight, it carried something else, something heavier. For a moment, neither spoke. The soft simmer of the food filled the silence as he leaned closer, pretending to check the dish. His arm brushed hers, his breath warm near her ear. "You added too much chili," he murmured, his voice low. "Maybe you just can't handle it anymore," she teased, her words playful, but her voice came out quieter than she intended. He met her eyes then, close enough that she could see the reflection of the kitchen light in his pupils. Her heart thudded once, hard, and she turned back toward the counter, gripping the wooden spoon like it could anchor her. She tried to remind herself that this was ordinary, that they were just cooking, just a husband and wife at the end of a long day. But her body refused to believe it. Every accidental brush of his hand, every shared look felt deliberate, familiar, yet thrillingly new. He reached past her for the plate, his chest grazing her shoulder. She exhaled sharply, trying to steady herself. "You're doing that on purpose," she whispered. He smiled, leaning just enough that his voice brushed against her skin. "Maybe I am." Their laughter came softly, breaking the tension for a heartbeat, but when it faded, the silence that followed was thick with everything unspoken. She turned slowly, and their eyes locked again. this time neither looked away. His hand rose, hesitant, testing, and brushed a stray strand of hair from her cheek. The touch was barely there, but her breath caught all the same. For a long second, time seemed to hold still, just them, the soft hum of rain outside, and a feeling that said something was changing. Then he leaned in, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead, small, tender, but filled with meaning. It wasn't rushed or bold, it was a promise. A quiet spark that left her wondering what would happen when the next moment came. The air felt heavier now, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. She stood by the counter, pretending to wipe it clean, but her mind wasn't on the kitchen anymore. It was on him, the way he looked at her tonight, different, searching, almost hesitant. He was leaning against the island, arms crossed, watching her in silence. Not possessive. Not impatient. Just drawn. Every few seconds, their eyes met, and neither of them could look away fast enough. There was warmth in that silence, but also guilt. The kind that came when feelings blurred lines, when love met longing in ways that felt too real to ignore. "Are you okay?" he asked finally, his tone gentle. She nodded, but her voice betrayed her. "Yeah, just tired." He didn't believe it. He stepped closer, stopping just behind her. His reflection appeared in the microwave door, his face calm, but his eyes, they were burning quietly. "You've been distant lately," he said, his voice almost a whisper. She swallowed hard. "Maybe I've just been distracted." "By what?" he asked. She turned then, their faces inches apart. She could smell his cologne, faint, familiar, stirring up memories of laughter and late nights when things were simpler. Her chest tightened. She wanted to speak, to step away, but her body betrayed her before her words did. When his hand brushed hers again, it didn't feel accidental this time. The contact lingered, slow, deliberate, filled with everything they weren't saying. She didn't pull away. Neither did he. It wasn't that they didn't know where this could lead, they did. That was the problem. There was a line between them, invisible but real, and they both felt it trembling. He exhaled, the sound low and shaky. "We shouldn't," he started, but the words dissolved when she met his gaze again. "I know," she whispered. Her fingers tightened around the dish towel, knuckles pale. "But it's hard when you look at me like that." His expression softened. "Like what?" "Like you remember everything." Silence. Heavy, full of meaning. The rain outside hit harder now, echoing the storm rising between them. He reached up, slow, uncertain, and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers lingered on her cheek for one heartbeat too long. Their breaths mixed in the narrow space between them. Her heart pounded so loud she thought he could hear it. He leaned closer, close enough that she could feel the whisper of his breath on her lips. And then, he stopped. The sound of a door closing upstairs snapped the moment in half. They froze, eyes locked, breathing unsteady, both knowing they had just teetered at the edge of something they couldn't take back. The house had gone quiet again, too quiet. The faint hum of the rain was the only sound between them. She stood by the sink, staring at the dark reflection in the window, her own heartbeat echoing in her ears. He was still behind her, leaning against the counter, hands in his pockets, watching her like he was trying to memorize every inch of the moment. Neither spoke. Words felt useless now, fragile things that couldn't carry the weight of what hung between them. She took a slow breath and turned around. Their eyes met again, and this time, neither looked away. He straightened, stepping toward her. The air shifted, tighter, warmer. She felt it in her chest, in the quick rise and fall of her breath. "About earlier," he began, voice quiet. She shook her head gently. "Don't," she whispered. "If we talk about it, it'll disappear." He smiled faintly, his eyes soft but intense. "And if we don't?" Her lips parted, but no answer came. Instead, she felt him step closer, close enough that the warmth from his body reached her. Her pulse quickened. She told herself to step back, to put space between them, but her feet wouldn't move. He lifted his hand slowly, his fingertips brushing against her arm. It wasn't bold, just a light touch, but it burned. Every nerve in her body seemed to wake up all at once. She tried to hide the shiver that ran through her, but he felt it anyway. "You're shaking again," he murmured. "Maybe it's still the heat," she said, her voice barely holding steady. He chuckled softly, leaning in just enough that his breath skimmed her neck. "You keep saying that," he whispered. She laughed nervously, the sound small and breathless. The space between them vanished completely now, chest to chest, breath to breath. Her hands hovered at his sides, uncertain whether to hold on or pull away. The rain outside grew heavier, the rhythm matching her heartbeat. The scent of soap and warm food lingered around them, but the air was charged now, alive, trembling. He tilted his head, his lips inches from hers. "Tell me to stop," he said quietly. She looked up at him, eyes glistening, her lips parting, but no words came. The silence stretched, thick and electric. The moment teetered on the edge, one breath away from something they both wanted and feared. And just as he leaned in, the timer on the stove beeped, breaking the spell like a crack of thunder. They both froze, then laughed softly, nervously, eyes still locked, breaths unsteady. The tension didn't fade. It only deepened, lingering in the air like a promise left unfinished. The kitchen timer's beep faded, but the silence that followed wasn't peaceful anymore. It was charged, trembling, alive. She turned off the stove, her hands unsteady. He was still watching her, his eyes saying everything he couldn't speak. That near kiss still hovered between them like unfinished business. Before she could find the words, the sound of footsteps echoed faintly from upstairs. They froze. Her heart raced, not from guilt exactly, but from the sudden reminder that this world around them was still real. He stepped back, running a hand through his hair, trying to steady himself. "We can't keep doing this," he said under his breath. She nodded, though her chest ached with the weight of it. "I know." But when she looked up again, their eyes met, and the distance they'd just created vanished all over again. The footsteps stopped. Silence. Then a voice, her sister's voice, called faintly from upstairs, "Are you guys still in the kitchen?" Her stomach flipped. Her sister was staying with them for a few days, helping out while things were rough between them. But if she came down now and saw the way they were standing, the way their eyes lingered too long, everything would be exposed. He moved quickly, stepping aside, pretending to grab plates from the cabinet. "Almost done," he called out, his tone steady though his voice was tight. She forced herself to breathe, to move like nothing had happened, though her pulse was hammering in her throat. Her sister didn't come down, but the interruption only made things worse. The danger of it, being caught, being seen, made the air even hotter. When the silence returned, he looked at her again, that same restless energy burning behind his calm expression. "You should go upstairs," he said softly. Before what?" she interrupted, her voice quiet but trembling. "Before we admit what's really happening?" He stared at her for a long time, no words. Then, slowly, he shook his head. "It's not that simple." She stepped closer anyway, the soft sound of her bare feet against the tile echoing in the heavy air. "It never is," she whispered. He didn't move back this time. When she reached for the plate, her hand brushed his again, the same touch they'd shared 100 times before, but now it burned like fire. "You know this isn't right," he said, voice low, eyes locked on hers. "I know," she breathed. "But it doesn't feel wrong." That broke something between them, or maybe it finally broke the wall they'd both been hiding behind. He exhaled sharply, his restraint slipping. The air around them pulsed with everything they'd been holding back, the longing, the fear, the truth neither could deny anymore. When his hand found her waist again, it wasn't hesitation this time, it was surrender. Her breath caught, her body stilling in his arms. For one perfect, dangerous second, the world outside the kitchen disappeared. It was just them, the sound of rain, the heat of their skin, the quiet promise of everything they could no longer resist. And just before their lips met, the faint creak of the stairs echoed again, stopping them on the edge of something they both knew they couldn't turn away from anymore. The sound of the stair creak froze them both in place. For a moment, they just stood there, breathless, guilty, hearts pounding. But no one came down. Just silence. Only the rain outside and the low hum of the oven filled the space again. He exhaled shakily, his hand still hovering near her waist. She looked up, eyes wide, caught between fear and longing. "We can't keep pretending," she whispered. Her voice was trembling, but not from fear, from everything she'd been holding back. He took a slow step closer. "Pretending what?" he asked softly. "That this isn't real?" She swallowed hard, her lips parting, but no words came out. When he reached for her, she didn't move away this time. His hand found her cheek, thumb brushing her skin, slow and deliberate. The touch sent warmth through her body, melting the last bit of resistance she had left. Their eyes locked, not wild or reckless, but desperate in a quiet, tender way. She could feel his heartbeat against hers, uneven and fast. He leaned in, just close enough that their breaths mingled, and finally, after all the pauses, all the hesitation, she closed the gap. The kiss wasn't rushed. It was deep, aching, filled with the weight of everything unsaid. Every suppressed word, every stolen glance, every almost touch now found its release. His hand slid around her back, drawing her closer, while her fingers curled against his shirt, holding on as if the world might stop spinning. When they finally broke apart, both were breathless. The rain outside grew heavier, streaking the glass like a mirror of what they felt, uncontrollable, alive. She looked up at him, voice shaking. "What does this mean?" He hesitated. That silence, that single heartbeat of truth, was the twist neither of them expected. His gaze softened, sorrow flickering behind the desire. "It means we can't go back," he said quietly. Her eyes glistened. "Then where do we go?" He didn't answer. Instead, he pressed his forehead to hers, breathing her in. The moment was raw, not just physical, but emotional, tangled with fear, love, and inevitability. Outside, thunder rolled softly in the distance. Inside, the two of them stood in that fragile space between what they wanted and what they couldn't undo. The oven beeped again, startling them both. She laughed softly, a broken, breathless sound, while he smiled, brushing a thumb over her lips. "Guest dinner's ready," he murmured. But neither moved. The food could wait. The world could wait. For once, they let the moment stay exactly as it was, suspended between love and consequence, knowing that after this night, nothing would ever be the same again. The rain had slowed to a whisper by the time they finally pulled apart. The kitchen lights glowed softly, turning the air golden and warm, wrapping them in a quiet stillness. Neither of them spoke at first. Words would have only ruined what still hung between them. The world outside felt distant now, blurred and forgotten. She leaned against his chest, eyes closed, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. It wasn't wild anymore. It was calm, grounded, real. His arms circled her waist, not possessive, just steady, protective. For the first time in a long while, she felt something she hadn't expected to find in that storm of emotion: peace. He pressed a soft kiss against her hair. "You okay?" he whispered. She nodded, her voice quiet. "I don't know what happens next, but I'm not sorry." He exhaled slowly, his thumb brushing gentle circles along her back. "Neither am I." There was no guilt now, no fear, only the kind of stillness that comes when two people finally stop pretending. The tension that once filled the room had softened into something warmer, something that felt like understanding. They didn't need promises. They didn't need to define it. Tonight wasn't about the future, it was about finally being honest, about letting down every wall they'd built. She looked up at him, her eyes soft but shining. "You know, I never thought it would feel like this," she said. "Like what?" he asked, his voice low, tender. "Like coming home," she whispered. He smiled, small, real, the kind of smile that reached his eyes. The kind that said everything without a single word. The kitchen, once filled with chaos and noise, now felt sacred, the soft hum of the refrigerator, The faint aroma of dinner gone cold, the glow of the rain-soaked window. Everything about it felt cinematic, unforgettable. She reached up, tracing her fingers along his jaw. "No matter what happens tomorrow," she murmured, "I'll remember this." He leaned down, brushing a slow, tender kiss against her forehead, a gesture that carried more weight than any declaration could. "So will I." The camera would have faded right there, the two of them in the warm golden light, holding on a little longer than they should, knowing the world might change tomorrow. But tonight, they let themselves breathe, love, and exist in a moment that would stay with them forever.